Today's story, Lake Havoc, written by the talented Kelley York, has been one of my favorite submissions to date. It's a story about two brothers who return to their family home and discover, well, you'll have to listen to find out. Instead, let me introduce you to Kelley by way of her bio. Kelley can be found hiding in the depths of the redwoods of the Northern California coast. With an anthropology degree she technically doesn't use, not enough caffeine to get her through the day, and entirely too many to-do lists, she savors the rainy weather and ocean views with her longtime friend, executive dysfunction. When she's not writing or running her book cover design business, Kelley can be found with her wife and pets, gaming, exploring nature, and reading. If you're interested in special sneak peeks, behind-the-scenes looks, polls, giveaways, super early reveals, and exclusive stories, you can join Graveyard Games on Ko-fi. I think you're gonna love this story, and I'm thrilled to narrate it for you. So sit back, turn down the lights, pull up the covers, turn up the volume, and pay close attention as I narrate Lake Havoc, written by Kelley York. I'm Will, and you're listening to Midnight Horror Stories. Lake Havoc, written by Kelley York. Home looked exactly as he remembered it. A cozy 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-level building constructed sometime in the 1940s, when folks were broke from World War II and big luxurious houses were out of most people's reach. It wasn't huge, but growing up it had felt endless thanks to the 3 acres of property surrounding it. Xavier grabbed his and Connor's suitcases from the trunk. Home sweet home. I can't believe it's been 7 years. Connor came around the sedan to retrieve his bag. The brothers stood side by side, gazing up at the house. It didn't look like a day had passed. The outside had a fairly fresh coat of seafoam green paint. There were thick clumps of moss on the roof. He'd have to let Mom know. She was usually really good about upkeep on that. She's never gonna update that color, Connor muttered, pulling out the suitcase's handle to wheel it up the driveway. True, Mom hoarded the same ancient paint swatch year after year to ensure that every time the exterior needed touch-ups, she got exactly the same shade. Dimly, Xavier remembered Dad hating the color. Maybe that's why she was so fond of it. Probably not. But wouldn't it be too weird if she did? Imagine this place painted brick red, or like that mustard yellow at the Mastersons. Fair point, I guess. By the time they reached the top of the gravel driveway, Cindy Thorne had stepped out onto the front porch to greet them. She'd come out to Phoenix to visit Xavier a few times, Denver to visit Connor, and they'd all gone together to Grandma's each Christmas in Portland until she passed 2 years back. Even though he'd seen his mother 8 months ago, there was a marked difference in her appearance that made him raise an eyebrow. Her full head of mousy brown hair had gone almost entirely gray in that short amount of time, and her eyes were heavy and tired. "My boys, there you are." Mom opened her arms to welcome them with tight hugs. She tugged briefly at Xavier's impressive beard with a roll of her eyes. Still growing this out. Forever and always, Xavier agreed with a grin. Still hate it? She'd harped at him about his beard when he was younger. She sighed. "Yes, but I think it'd be strange to see you without it now." Cindy ushered them out of the cool evening air, leaving them to drop off their bags in their old rooms, also unchanged, while she continued working on dinner. Xavier hid the suitcase on top of the dresser to unpack later. He was more interested in heading to the window to look outside. Same old trees, a combination of oaks and pines, with a smattering of Japanese maples that took on a brilliant sunset color this time of year. He tried to peer past them at the lake, but with the waning sunlight and overgrowth of branches, he couldn't get even a glimpse. Connor appeared in his doorway, leaning against it. "She looks like shit, right? It's not just me." Xavier moved back across the room, leaning his shoulder into the opposite side of the doorframe. "Give her a break. She's pushing 60 and takes care of this place all by herself. I think she's earned some gray hairs." "Gray hair, sure. But she looks like she hasn't slept in a month." Connor's brow furrowed. I'm just saying, maybe we need to ask if she's got any health stuff going on. Make sure she's taking care of herself as well as she takes care of this house." Fat chance. Their mother wasn't the sort to avoid getting help if she got sick, but she sure was oblivious of where the line lay between everyday illness and "Jesus, Mom, go to the fucking doctor." Like the time she'd stumbled around for 2 weeks with bronchitis because she thought she was just fighting off a cold. Yeah, okay. Xavier scratched a hand back through his hair with a sigh. "I'll bring it up." Connor visibly relaxed. He'd forever be the baby in Mom's eyes. When it came to certain topics, her eldest was the only person she'd listen to. "Thanks." They headed to the kitchen. Age-old habits had them setting the table without being asked. The room's original wallpaper still clung to the walls, though it'd gotten so sun-bleached over the years that the pink floral pattern was more of an idea these days. With the table prepped, the brothers had a seat. Jake Thorne's empty place stood out like a sore thumb, even though Mom had removed the chair years ago, a sharp reminder Dad had walked out and wasn't coming back. In its place stretched the silence where their shouting matches used to be. Mom shuffled about the kitchen, multitasking to finish up the last few dishes. Xavier studied her. The way she moved, the way she occasionally paused and seemed to forget what she'd been doing or what she'd opened the cabinet for. Like the gray hair, that was new. He waited until they all had their steak, loaded mashed potatoes, rolls, and green beans, and then a little longer, until a few of the usual pleasantries were out of the way, before he decided to venture into the unknown. A conversation that might go just fine or end in tears with Mom accusing them of thinking she couldn't take care of herself. "Everything okay here, Mom? Any problems?" She finished chewing her bite, blinking widely at him. "Problems? Like what?" "I don't know. Anything with the house stressing you out?" Cindy looked around the kitchen with a frown, as though running through an array of checklists in her mind. "Nothing out of the ordinary. Had some pipes replaced under the house a few months ago, but that's about it." "What about the roof?" Xavier asked. "The moss." "I had it done 2 months ago," she grumbled. "The stuff keeps growing back faster and faster." "Okay, so the house is fine. What about your health?" Connor gently pressed. "What about my health?" Cindy swung her gaze to her youngest son. "Does it look like something's wrong with me?" Xavier grasped for the right words to avoid a scene. "Nah, you look great. Just looks like you aren't getting a whole lot of sleep, I guess." To his relief, her shoulders relaxed and she heaved a sigh. "Oh, that. It's the neighbors. Every damned night for the last 2-3 months, they keep me up with this incessant banging." "Banging?" Connor asked. "Like, just banging. I don't know if they've got a midnight carpentry club going on or what, but I can't even pinpoint who it is to file a complaint." The brothers exchanged glances. Yeah, that would be annoying. The area around Lake Havoc was a notoriously quiet neighborhood. Neighbors were few and far between, every house surrounded by at least an acre of dense forest, if not 4 or 5. Though with being surrounded by mountains on all sides, noises resonated within the valley. Loudly, Every time there was a rock slide or some of the bluffs came down, everyone heard it. Xavier shrugged. Well, we'll try to keep an ear out and zero in on the culprit while we're here. I doubt the others around the lake appreciate it either. Cindy smiled and reached out to pat both their hands. You boys are too sweet. Don't fuss over me. You're here on vacation, so try to enjoy it, Oh, we will. We're gonna go down to the lake tomorrow. Connor grinned, a rare boyish charm lighting up his face. Brought our swimsuits, too. You can tell me how it goes. I haven't been down there much myself, but I've been hearing that the water has receded so much this last summer. Lowest it's ever been. She sighed. Such a shame. Yay, climate change, Xavier thought bitterly. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Water levels being down a few inches after a dry season wasn't unheard of, nor was it unnatural. But that was something to worry about in the morning. They finished their meal, shooed their mother off so they could handle the cleanup, and after an hour or two of idly talking and watching TV, the siblings called it a night. After all, it was their vacation, and Xavier looked forward to catching up on much-needed sleep. Connor had outgrown his room before he'd even moved away from home. The model airplanes and trains and paint by numbers were a thing of the past, but Mom had never taken them down. Seeing them again didn't bother him, really. In fact, it left him with a helping of warm nostalgia to bask in. Growing up hadn't been all sunshine and rainbows. Not for him, anyway. While Xavier had been the cool, popular guy at school, Connor had been lumped in with the invisible crowd. No one noticed him, and if they did, it wasn't for a good reason. He'd been bullied all throughout elementary school for being a little husky, for liking D&D and Magic the Gathering. Xavier, who had also been on the bigger side but simply exuded confidence, had always stepped in to defend him. He'd gotten into more fights over his little brother than anything else, but the fact that he'd needed to never sat right with Connor. His dad hadn't cared that he was more interested in models than actual planes or cars or whatever. Hadn't cared that Connor wouldn't go fishing because killing fish upset him. Cindy and Jake Thorne encouraged his more artistic talents. Xavier might have poked and prodded and teased him like any older brother, but it was never mean-spirited. Not like the kids at school. Home, though. Home was a refuge. Especially this room. It had always felt safe from the judgment of the rest of the world. Now was no different. He crawled into bed, swaddled himself in the quilt his mom had made years ago out of Halloween fabric, and gazed out the window into the trees. It had scared him as a little boy. Then, as he got older, he started opening his curtain at night so he could look out into the darkness, trace shapes amongst the branches with his eyes. Another comfort, another sense of safety and familiarity. He didn't remember dozing off, but the last time he'd looked at the clock, it had just been after 11, and now his phone read 1:24 a.m. Something had jolted him out of a dead sleep, but the room sat quiet. Connor relaxed into the mattress, sliding his hands over his face with a sigh. Probably just a bad dream or something. Before he could doze back off, the noise that had woken him sounded again. A bang, somewhere in the distance, reverberating off the mountains around Lake Havoc. With a sharp inhale, Connor sat up. A dull metallic sound, like someone cracking a rubber mallet against heavy machinery. It had to be the racket his mom had talked about at dinner, except it didn't sound like anyone doing construction. It wasn't constant enough for that. There was no hammering in rapid succession, no mechanical whirring. Just that bang, every 30 to 40 seconds. After the third time, Connor swept the blankets aside and got out of bed. He shuffled his socked feet across the hardwood floor, easing out into the hallway. Dead silence held steady over the rest of the house. Maybe Mom was sleeping through it tonight. He headed into the kitchen, and from there, out the back door onto the deck. Again, definitely coming from somewhere near the lake, but it was impossible to tell what direction. Someone's car could backfire on the east shore, and the echo would make it sound like it had come from every which way. He closed his eyes and strained his ears. No, that wasn't coming from the houses atop the hills, was it? You heard it too, huh? Connor startled and turned around as Xavier stepped onto the porch. He'd been so zeroed in on the noise he hadn't heard him approach. Yeah, he said, turning back towards the woods. Listen though, I don't think that's coming from the bluffs. They lapsed into silence. Don't think so, no. One of the houses on the shore, maybe. Maybe. Connor's brow furrowed. Should we go check it out? It's like 2 a.m. and fucking freezing, man. Xavier hugged himself, exhaling a puff of warm breath that fogged in front of his face as though to prove his point. Why don't we go explore in the morning? We wanted to see the lake anyway. Come on, before we freeze our asses off. Xavier turned to go back inside. Connor lingered, gazing out over the familiar pines and redwoods of his youth. It should have all felt the same, but something was off. We'll continue right after this quick ad break. When Xavier crawled out of bed in the morning, the sound had stopped. Hopefully their mom had slept through the worst of it. By the time he showered and got dressed, Connor was already by the back door in a pair of black swim shorts, a gray t-shirt, and orange sandals, practically bouncing from foot to foot in impatience. Xavier had opted for denim shorts, his boots, and a light sweater. The lake could be brutally cold this time of year. Not exactly swimming weather. Mom still asleep? He asked. Connor nodded. All right, let's get this show on the road. The early morning air bit through his layers with ease. He grimaced. He'd gotten used to the Phoenix climate where summers hit triple digits and winters rarely ducked below 40 degrees. As kids, they would have gone swimming in the dead of winter if their parents had let them. But by the time they were teenagers, that superhero ability to enjoy the freezing temps had faded. The stairs Jake Thorne had built when the boys were younger were still there. Growing up, they'd always ignored them in favor of taking a much straighter route. Xavier gave the hillside one brief look before deciding his knees were too old to parkour down the mud and moss-slicked rocks. The stairs had held up, though the wood gave a bit beneath his boots and made him grimace at the squishy sensation. Too much rain, too much moisture, not enough upkeep. Not without Dad. Jesus Christ, Connor muttered. He'd opted to take the stairs too. Mom wasn't kidding about the water level. Xavier squinted in the dim pre-dawn light that cast everything in dramatic shades of blue and pink. Years of familiarity drew his gaze to the lake's edge. At least, where it used to be. Now, his eyes had to wander several feet out. The dock, also built by Jake Thorne that same summer as the stairs, had never failed to jut from the lake's surface. Now it stood bone dry in the middle of nowhere, leaning precariously to one side. Well, Xavier said as they reached the bottom steps, that's fucking depressing. Our lakefront property turned into a beachfront, Connor murmured, surveying the exposed earth with a troubled frown. The massive body of water was still huge, but its circumference had shrunk by a solid 50 feet. Sure, there had been dry years before, but not like this. Never like this. Xavier traipsed out onto what had once been Lake Havoc and was now damp, swampy ground. A vivid memory returned to him of shuffling across the same stretch of land, the stones worn smooth from sand and water and time. Now, it all shifted and squelched beneath his feet, as though it had lost its will to live. Pieces of decades-old trash jutted from the ground. A few tin cans, a car muffler rusted through, a piece of wrinkled rubbery material that might have once been some kid's floaties. An old memory resurfaced. Anytime the brothers had asked their parents about the whereabouts of a missing item, Dad would laugh. Maybe you should ask the lake. It knows everything. He ventured out to the new edge of the lake, where the water gently lapped and stretched for his toes. Standing there, at least, he felt a sense of peace. Okay, so climate change and all the shit that came with it had taken some of the lake's glory, but it hadn't destroyed it completely. Maybe they could even still manage a swim if the weather cooperated. Connor stopped at his side, toes wiggling in his shoes. Surreal, right? Definitely surreal. Think it'll get better? I mean, I hope so. No lake means the property values are gonna tank. He laughed, but Connor's flat expression suggested it wasn't funny. Seriously though, I bet 2 good seasons of rain would have this place almost back to normal. Might not be a bad idea to clean up some of the trash while it's exposed though, so we're not cutting our bare feet on tin cans and a car, Connor said suddenly. A car, Xavier repeated, paused, turned to where his brother was pointing. But where the water had once been so much taller, he could still see the old erosion marks on the bluffs themselves had dropped drastically low enough to expose another graveyard of trash, including, yes, the tail end of an old car. The paint had chipped away and faded. The vinyl roof sat ratty and ripped. Rust had eaten through some of the exterior metal, and the bumper lay half off, dislodged either by time or from having been driven into a goddamn lake to begin with. The butt of the car was suspended in the air by a large boulder, with the front 3/4 completely submerged. I know people like to dump their junk in here, but that's a bit much, Connor said as they fell into step to approach it. Might have been stolen or something, and they wanted to hide it. Even close up, Xavier couldn't wager a guess what color it had been. Orange maybe, or a dark blue. No, red. Red seemed right. He tentatively ran a hand over the lock cover on the trunk, absently scrubbing at the metal to try to bring some shine back to it. How long had this thing been there? Hide it in a fucking lake? That seems extreme. Connor tipped his head back. Guess it would have been possible to drive it over the cliffs up there. But if it wasn't stolen, what if someone drove off on purpose? Like, while still in it? Xavier's back went stiff, and he turned to look at the submerged chunk of the car. The lake wasn't clear enough to see into, especially not in this light. His little brother had a point. They didn't know if the car had been shoved in, or if the driver had still been behind the wheel. Could have been suicide, could have been intoxication. Any missing persons report would have gone unsolved all this time. He peered back around at the rear of the car. No license plate. Maybe it'd gotten knocked off during the fall. Or yanked off first. I really doubt there's a body hanging out in the driver's seat, man. But there could be, Connor stressed. Admittedly, pressing the issue made Xavier's inside squirm with uncertainty. Some kind of warning pinging in the recesses of his mind. Should they call the cops? Was it stupid to? What if they came out, found an empty car that had been stolen years ago, and left pissed off that their time had been wasted? No calling the cops yet. Mom had cautioned them for years about the police and Havoc, with their power trips and corrupted inner workings. It'd been that way as long as Xavier could recall. Officers had harassed his mom on more than one occasion just because they could, and he doubted that mentality had changed in the years he'd been gone. He remembered the cops hanging around their entire family after Dad took off, too. He held up his hands. Okay. What do you want me to do? Swim into murky, freezing cold water and grope around blindly for dead bodies? Connor stared at him. Yeah, that's exactly what he wants me to do. And Xavier was just curious enough to be willing. They returned to the house to find Mom up and cooking breakfast. Neither of them mentioned their beach find, or that they'd visited the lake at all. Connor didn't see a point in worrying her. He was pretty sure he was doing enough worrying for them all. He couldn't get the car out of his head. So many questions. How long had it been there? How had it gotten there? Were they going to solve some cold case of a stolen automobile or even a missing person? The thought of anyone being in that vehicle made his stomach roll. Hopefully, they'd been unconscious before they hit the water, because drowning while struggling with a seatbelt sounded like a really shitty way to go. Xavier scarfed down his breakfast. Connor tried and failed. It all tasted wrong, poisoned by his frazzled nerves. He was surprised that even Xavier seemed hesitant about this. His brother had never been one to proceed with caution. Xavier was the one who'd try almost anything once, no matter how dangerous. It'd been a concern when they were young adults. Xavier was the idiot who decided to go hiking in an area meant for guides and experts who knew what they were doing. He'd gotten lost for 4 days before park authorities found him, dehydrated and hungry, but with a big grin on his face. Thankfully, his risk-taking had mellowed out when they hit their late 20s. Connor had no idea why, if maybe Xavier had simply grown more aware of his own mortality. But whatever the reason, he was glad for it. Maybe that explained his uncertainty now. Mom held them up in conversation for a while, and given that they were there to visit her, neither of them could bring themselves to cut it short. Eventually, she excused herself for a shower and to get herself looking presentable for the day. Besides, she said in amusement, I'm sure you two are itching to go explore the lake. Hallelujah. Connor followed Xavier back to his room, where they spent a bit rummaging around for a pair of goggles. They were old, but the straps seemed to hold up, and it loosened enough to fit around Xavier's adult-sized head. What about a flashlight? Xavier whispered, like he thought their mom was going to overhear from across the house. There's the mag light in the garage, but I really don't think Mom's got a waterproof flashlight lying around. Is your phone submersible? Yeah, but that's a weak-ass light source. He tugged at his beard with a frown. Whatever, I'll make it work. Let's go. They tromped back outside, down the steps, and to the new edge of the lake. Some small part of Connor hoped they'd somehow imagine the whole thing. But then he spotted the car at its 45-degree angle, and his heart lobbed up into his throat. As they approached, Xavier yanked off his shirt. He draped it across the hood of the trunk, joined shortly by his boots and socks, until he stood there in just his denim shorts and tattooed skin. Connor couldn't help but be in awe of him. Only Xavier could be presented with this kind of task and not balk at it. Connor unfurled a rope he'd grabbed from the garage and handed one end to Xavier to tie around his waist. Just as a safeguard. If you get stuck or something and need me to pull you back up, yank twice on this. Sounds like a plan. And if you're down there too long, I'm yanking the rope anyway. You worry too much. Xavier grinned. He pulled his phone from his pocket. It was some newer model with a thick case that looked like it'd be volcano-proof if the situation called for it. Xavier activated the flashlight, and it was bright enough there on the beach, but underwater, visibility was going to be minimal at best. Xavier waded into the lake waist-deep before turning to give him a grand smile. Wish me luck finding buried treasure instead of bodies. And then, he was gone. Lake Havoc had never been known for being Tahoe blue, especially when chunks dislodged from the bluffs to crash into the water below, kicking up sediment that took days to fully settle. It was worse than Xavier remembered it, though. His flashlight illuminated a tiny space around him, but beyond a foot or so in front of his face, nothing but murky brown with an occasional shadow in the distance. Fish, probably. That was all. He took stock of his surroundings, noting the angle of the car, getting a feel for how far down he needed to go to reach the driver's side door. Before descending, he surfaced long enough to take in deep lungfuls of air, then ducked back under. They'd grown up in this lake, seeing who could swim out the farthest, Who could hold their breath the longest? It was still one of his favorite activities. The cold didn't bother him after the first 30 seconds, and he had a decent but limited amount of time to do what he'd come to do. 2 minutes, maybe 3 if he really stretched it. Xavier swam down about 2 feet, keeping a hand on the side of the car. His fingers brushed over chrome trimmings and glass, and eventually he found the door handle, grasped it, pulled himself closer. He couldn't see past the algae-covered glass, even pressing his goggles right up to it. The most he could make out were shadowy shapes that could have been bodies, or simply the sunlight trying to bully its way down into the depths. Xavier braced himself and tried the handle. The rusted button stuck at first, then finally gave way and enabled him to drag the door open. The front seats were empty. If he could have sighed in relief just then. No bodies. But he was down there anyway, and he had time to spare. He used the large steering wheel to pull himself into the car, sinking himself into the driver's seat for a better look around. Just a standard old car, 60s or 70s maybe. It had that kind of vibe. Algae had plastered itself to most of the glass, including the rearview mirror, which Xavier reached up to scrub away with his thumb. A look over his shoulder revealed an empty back seat. No personal effects to be seen. He studied the dashboard, panning the phone light over its old dials and knobs. An emblem of the brand name was embedded into the steering wheel, a match to the trunk's lock cover. Above the glove box, another logo had been affixed, this one done in script that he had to lean forward to read. Continental Mark III. One mystery solved. Yeah, that's right. He remembered that model from somewhere. A red Continental, polished to perfection. One of Connor's model cars, maybe. His brain flicked back to a long-estranged memory. Xavier, a young boy, standing beside the trunk of a car, sliding the lock cover open and closed, scrubbing his sleeve over the metal to polish it. Help me load this in there, kiddo. It's gonna be heavy. What's in it? Just some stuff we have to take to the dump. Come on, lift. Xavier shook his head and frowned. Something caught his eye, and when he slid his hand further toward the wheel, his fingers brushed across something. A key, still jutting from the ignition. He pulled it out with ease, lifting it in front of his goggles. No personalized keychains or baubles. No house keys. Just a single car key. Maybe he'd been right, and the car had been stolen. The why they'd left the stereo and other parts intact was anyone's guess. He'd have expected a stolen car to be stripped down to its bones. After a quick check of the empty glove box, Xavier maneuvered to get back out of the car. A shadow caught his eye in the rearview mirror, most definitely there until he swiveled around to look. Nada. Still an empty back seat. Stop freaking yourself out. Suddenly the car felt incredibly small, crowded with the sensation that he wasn't alone. He wanted out. As he turned to leave, something glided across the back of his neck, cold and slick, like long dead fingers. Xavier screamed. Connor didn't take his eyes off the water. 30 seconds. 60. He knew how long Xavier could hold his breath, but it didn't make him feel any better. Minutes felt like hours. He contemplated giving the rope a light tug just for confirmation his brother was still attached to the other end, but bit back the urge. Xavier knew what he was doing. Probably. After a long while, long enough that Connor's hold on the rope had relaxed, the thing damn near ripped from his hands. He sucked in a breath and pulled as hard as he could. The surface of the water disrupted in ripples and bubbles, then exploded as Xavier surfaced, gasping for breath. He would have laughed in relief if not for the look of terror on his brother's face as he splashed out of the water. What happened? Got the shit scared out of me by a goddamn fish, Xavier grumbled, dragging a hand down his wet face. Lost my goggles. I had a key too, and I dropped it. Connor put a hand on his brother's back as Xavier doubled over and caught his breath. It's okay. It's cool. No bodies, right? Xavier gave a wheezing laugh. Nah, no bodies. No, nothing actually. Looks like the car was cleaned out before it went for a swim. Maybe that was all the answer they needed then. Empty car. No license plate. Someone had stolen it for whatever reason. For parts. For revenge. And disposed of it in Lake Havoc. Could a tow truck even get down here to fish it out? Xavier placed a hand on the hood of the trunk, traced his fingers over the decorative cover of the lock. It resisted when he thumbed at it, but eventually gave. Before Connor could say anything, Xavier jerked his hand back as though burned. He shook his head. I'd bet my money on it being just some stolen piece of crap. Let's go back inside. Seriously? After all that? Yeah, man. After all that. There's nothing down there. Connor floundered at the sudden shift in attitude. But we should at least tell Mom and see about calling the cops. Just leave it alone, Connor. Xavier snapped. Connor took an abrupt step back as his big brother pushed past and stalked down the beach. What the hell just happened? Xavier had been all for this half an hour ago. What had changed? Connor gazed into the murky water. What did you see down there? We'll continue right after this quick ad break. They returned to the house in silence. Mom had finished getting herself put together for the day. When she asked how the beach had been, Xavier cast Connor a stern look, and he bit his tongue. Good, Mom. Lake's definitely low, but the water was nice. It wasn't like lying to his mom was anything new. Both of them had done it plenty as unruly teenagers, but it felt weird now as a grown-ass adult. They spent the rest of the afternoon alternating between visiting with their mother and doing odd jobs around the house. Cleaning the gutters, hauling stuff up to the attic, dragging down the Christmas decorations so their mother wouldn't have to do it in a month after they were gone. Xavier acted as if everything was fine, but the morning's finding ate at Connor as the day passed. By the time they called it quits for bed, he was exhausted from pretending nothing was wrong. Even his bed was no reprieve. It only made his mind louder. He eventually fell asleep, but only after tossing and turning for 2 hours. Then his eyes snapped open. He sat upright before his brain even registered that another bang had woken him. He couldn't have been asleep that long. His eyes were heavy and blurry, his mouth dry. Swearing, he rolled out of bed. In record time, he threw on his shorts and a sweatshirt, grabbed his sandals and the maglite from the garage, and marched out of the house. Halfway down the beach, it dawned on him that he'd set out alone, without Xavier. Whatever. If his brother didn't want anything to do with this, then what choice did he have? Beneath the foggy moonlight, the rear end of the car came into view. Connor's breath stuttered in his chest. Louder, more frequent. He stopped a few feet away from the trunk and stared, listened. Slowly, he closed the gap and reached out, placed a hand against the cold metal. The air went so still, so silent, void of a breeze or owls or any other nature sounds he was used to. He leaned in and pressed his ear to the trunk. Connor tore away, choking on a shout. The incessant sound wasn't coming from the bluffs at all. It was right here in this abandoned, rotting corpse of a car. I should call the cops. Get Xavier. Something. Connor paced, dragging a hand down his face while trying to get his breathing under control. No one was going to help him with this. No one was going to believe him. He needed to put on his big boy pants and do it himself for a change. He shed his sweatshirt and sandals with immediate regret as the cold slithered over his body. removed his glasses, and grabbed the rope they'd left earlier. Tied one end around the more secure end of the back bumper and the other around his waist. Placed the mag light on the dirt aimed at the water, and waded in armed with his phone while sucking air in through his teeth as the icy lake sank into his bones. He dove under. Seeing underwater in the daytime was hard enough. Seeing without goggles, harder. In the dead of night without goggles, without his glasses, and only a pitiful phone light. Fuck. Connor dragged himself along the length of the car, found the driver's side door still wide open, and pulled himself inside. The phone did little to illuminate the murky space, so he relied mostly on touch. He ran his hands over the seat, on the sides of it, down to the floorboards. Felt the pedals and what remained of the floor mats, and a rock. Something that had been used to weigh down the gas pedal, maybe. Then he grazed something small and movable, and his fingers closed around it. A single ring with a key attached. Yes. Underwater, the sound was explosive. Connor reeled backward at the same time as something yanked the rope around his waist, hard enough that the back of his skull slammed against the doorframe as he was jerked from the car, enough that his vision blurred, and it was all Connor could do to thrash and try to reorient himself as whatever it was pulled him down into the lake. He broke the surface, coughing up water. "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" Xavier grabbed his arm to try to help him onto dry land. He wore his pajamas, and now his sweatpants were sopping wet, almost up to his waist. Connor doubled over, hacking the last of the lake from his lungs and replacing it with air. "I heard the banging, and you thought taking a swim in the middle of the fucking night was a great solution." Xavier fumed, but Connor knew anger wasn't really the emotion behind it. It was fear, worry. Even now, he hovered close to Connor, a hand against his back, trying to make sure he was all right. Connor waved him off and straightened, reaching for his glasses tucked next to the mag light. I'm good. Xavier's brows formed an unimpressed glower. "What were you doing?" Hesitantly, Connor held up the car key. Xavier's eyes squinted and then widened. "Why?" "That's why." Connor snatched his hand back as Xavier reached for the key. "Whatever that noise is, it's coming from the trunk." He turned and made for the back of the car. "Hey, wait. Let's think about this," Xavier started. "I have been thinking about it. All fucking day. You don't want to be involved? Fine. Go back to the house." Connor shoved the key into the lock and started working the rusted pieces back to life. Xavier appeared beside him, slamming a hand atop the trunk. Connor looked at his brother's imploring, panicked eyes. He'd never seen Xavier so pale, so utterly terrified. Haunted. "Please, tell me why," Connor said, searching the ghostly visage that was his brother's face. When Xavier couldn't seem to find the words, Connor pressed his mouth into a thin line. He turned the key, and the trunk latch popped. Xavier jerked away, covering his mouth with his hands and backing up, while Connor hauled the lid open on gritty hinges. To no surprise, the trunk sloshed with grimy lake water. But what stood out wasn't the water. It was the oil drum crammed inside. Connor drew back, frowning. Water had eaten away pieces of the metal, but it still held its shape. Connor looked at Xavier, who'd gone stock still, his eyes huge and glassy. "Connor, please, let's go call the cops. It's fine. We don't have to do this." Connor's jaw clenched, teeth on edge. What was this? Secrets. Something Xavier knew and didn't want to tell him. Or maybe he was playing the overprotective big brother again, like they were back in school, and poor little Connor needed a gallant knight to run to his aid. He turned his back on Xavier, grabbed the edges of the barrel, and pulled. The drum resisted at first, and then gave with a metallic grinding as he dragged it over the lip of the trunk and let it hit the ground. There, the source of the sound after all. This time, when the echo resonated across the lake, Connor could see where it came from. Something inside the oil drum wanted out. He couldn't bring himself to move. Behind him, Xavier whimpered, "Connor, please." But Connor's eyes remained glued to the barrel. He slowly picked up the maglite, aiming it at the drum as he retreated a few paces. Another few insistent bangs ruptured the seal, and the lid came loose. Beneath the trembling glow of the flashlight, something reached out from within. A wrinkled, bloated hand, preserved by the frigid waters. An arm followed. Connor stared in muted horror as the man's waterlogged corpse pulled itself from the oil drum, sloshing about foul-smelling water and releasing the scent of decay into the air. Its fingers dug into the muddy earth for purchase to drag itself forward. Xavier grabbed Connor's arm, fingers digging in hard. "Dude, we need to go." Connor's voice warbled. The dead thing struggled to its feet. Shockingly, its body was still in one piece, though its thin skin had peeled and sloughed away in places. Some sort of covering had grown over its entire body, muting the details of its face like a thick, waxy second skin. It drew its sodden hands over its lips, its eyes tearing at the fatty surface. When it finally freed its mouth, the low, howling moan that erupted from its throat sent a jolt of terror through Connor's body. His mind blanked, unable to register that fight or flight were even options. Xavier had stopped shaking, frozen like his brother, but his pupils were dilated like a deer in the headlights, and his voice emerged as barely a whisper. "Dad." A bright red, custom-painted Continental Mark III. His dad's pride and joy. Xavier had liked to think it'd get passed down to him someday. Now, Xavier stared at the car and his dead father, with another long-forgotten memory clawing at the recesses of his mind. "Help me load this in there, kiddo. It's gonna be heavy." "What's in it?" Helping his mom load a barrel into the trunk. "We aren't telling the police anything. You hear? Not a word. Neither of you saw or heard anything." The cops had come to their house, prodded Xavier and Connor with questions about their dad leaving, if they'd seen anything strange, heard anything. Xavier had thought about the barrel, about how it had been 2 days since he'd seen his father last. A sick sensation in his belly forced him to open his mouth and lie. He had to protect his family. That was his job. With Dad gone, he was the man of the house. The memory had eventually faded into a bad dream, a nightmare that now staggered toward him. Guilt rooted Xavier to the spot. He lifted his hands helplessly as Jake Thorne's corpse stopped before him, the rank aroma of wet, tainted flesh invading all his senses. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The thing that used to be Jake Thorne leaned closer. He brought his wrinkled hands up and cupped them to Xavier's face. Cold and clammy, and almost enough to make him retch. But he didn't pull away, because this was his father, and Xavier had missed the hell out of him. Had spent years grieving for a man he knew was never coming back, while his baby brother kept checking the mail on birthdays and Christmas. Dad's mouth drew open again, rasping. His voice was watery, grotesque, broken. "You saw." Xavier's vision blurred. "I saw the barrel. I saw Mom put it in the trunk, but I didn't." He had known, deep down, and he'd never dared speak a word of it to Mom or Connor. It had festered inside him like an infected wound, until the only way he could heal from it had been to forget it. So easy, "You knew," the corpse growled. Then it plunged its thumbs into his eye sockets. There was pressure, and then a sharp light followed by sharper pain. A sick squelch as his father wrapped bloated fingers around the eyeballs, and then ripped. Even blind, he couldn't unsee it. Through the blood and then the imposing darkness, Xavier couldn't unsee his own hands, helping to put his dad's corpse in the trunk, playing with the lock cover. Open, close, open, close. He didn't notice when Jake Thorne drew away, too preoccupied with the empty holes in his face, the searing agony that replaced them. "No, Dad. Leave Mom alone." Connor's voice seemed to come from all around him. He rocked to his feet, staggering forward, wanting to follow them. They were headed for the house. The pain disoriented him almost as much as the complete darkness. Xavier's feet met water. He turned, lost his balance, collapsed to all fours. He clutched at the sand and moss, the moss that had been seeping out from the lake to try to reach the house, just like Dad was doing now. Sergeant Ben Copeland arrived at the scene late. He'd been enjoying a quiet night at home. The kids were off at friends' houses, and so it'd just been him and the dogs, ingesting late-night movies and a gigantic bowl of popcorn. But he couldn't ignore a work call, so on went the uniform and badge, and off he went. "Really think you should check this one out personally, Sarge. We, aren't sure what to make of it." The Thorne residence. It instantly curdled his stomach. They didn't talk about it much with newcomers to the area, but those who'd been around as long as Copeland were no strangers to Cindy Thorne. They'd become closely acquainted when her husband had, allegedly, split town. Anyone with eyes and a lick of sense could tell Jake and Cindy weren't a happily married couple. They seemed to stay together just for the boys, who they both loved. That was something Copeland didn't doubt for a second. Connor and Xavier were good kids, happy kids, all things considered. Their parents just hated each other. Despite the suspicion that Cindy was behind her husband's disappearance, they had nothing to go off. Cameras hadn't been commonplace back then, not in a rural area like this. No eyewitness statements, no nothing. She'd walked away without as much as a night in jail for real questioning. No wonder the force was so salty with her afterward, maybe even a little spiteful. Now Copeland wandered into the little house by Lake Havoc, and it felt like he'd stepped back in time. Except Cindy was nowhere to be seen. His officers were busy processing the scene, photographing and measuring and taking samples of fluid on the hardwood floors, items that had been knocked askew in a clear struggle. Not just fluid, chunks of flesh and organs, bloody hunks discarded haphazardly in the watery red puddles. Pieces of human viscera were now an accent piece. Who was it? Or rather, who had it been? Cindy, one of the boys. His stomach turned, eyes watering from the smell. What in the actual fuck? He spotted the newbie, Benson, in the kitchen looking utterly stumped as she surveyed the room, and then relieved as all get out to see him. "Sarge, the hell happened here?" he asked. He might not have liked Cindy, might have known she was guilty of something, but for fuck's sake, whatever had happened here, no one deserved that. Benson stepped closer to lower her voice, like every officer in the damn house didn't already know something out of the ordinary had taken place. We got a call from one of Cindy Thorne's sons. The younger one, Connor. Relief. That meant those scattered pieces of person likely weren't his. Right, he was... Pause. Very out of it. The operator thought he was delusional, or hysterical, or both. Started screaming that his brother was hurt, and his dad was going to kill his mom. She gestured around the house. We got here and found Connor sitting on the back steps, awake but completely unresponsive. Copeland frowned. What the fuck? Had they been wrong? Had Jake Thorne taken off like Cindy said? Had he come back after all these years? What about the mom and the other boy, Xavier? Benson shook her head. Nothing yet. Where's Connor now? Still out on the steps, just staring at the lake. Copeland thanked her and slipped outside, minding what he touched or disrupted along the way. Sure enough, he located the younger Thorne boy on the old stairs leading down to the lake's edge. Someone had draped a blanket around his shoulders and placed a cup of coffee in his hands, but it didn't look like he touched it, and the blanket had slid mostly off one shoulder. He looked like he'd spent the evening staring into hell. Copeland dragged in a deep breath to clear his lungs and eased down beside him. Hey Connor, it's been a while. He peered into Connor's blank, haunted face. It's Ben Copeland. Can you talk to me? Tell me what happened. Copeland had always made it a point to be extra nice to the Thorne boys. Felt damn sorry for them, frankly. The point being, Connor knew him, and he'd hoped that'd get some answers. When he got nothing but silence, Copeland tried again. Connor, you said on the phone your brother was hurt and your mom was under attack. All that blood inside. Is that your brother's? I gotta know what's going on, son. The last word seemed to toggle some switch in Connor's brain, made a muscle in his jaw twitch, and his jaw clicked shut. Slowly, he turned his head toward Copeland, though his eyes might as well have been looking into the abyss. We found Dad's car, he said slowly. In the lake. The lake. It took everything he had not to bolt down those stairs to look. It had come up during the initial investigation, but with no other evidence or witnesses, with limited funds, dragging the monstrous lake Havoc hadn't been an option. Copeland took a slow breath through his nose. I'm listening. He was really upset. He who? Your brother? No. Dad. A chill slithered up Copeland's spine. Sorry. Come again? Connor didn't so much as blink. He came up to the house to see Mom. Son, your old man was reported as a missing person years ago. After all this time, he's been legally declared dead. Are you saying that's not the case? No, it is. Connor said it so simply, so matter of fact, like he didn't understand why Copeland wasn't getting it. Another officer appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Sarge, we found the other son. Copeland stiffened. He all right? The man hesitated, stealing a glance at Connor. He's hysterical. Found him wandering and raving and crying nearly half a mile around the beach. I think he was lost. That boy grew up on the lake. How the hell did he get lost? Well, sir, the deputy anxiously licked his lips. He's, missing his eyes. Copeland twisted to stare at Connor, expression grim. Connor, man, you've got to tell me where your mom is. Connor's head tipped. Slowly, his mouth twisting up into a grin as an unsettling giggle escaped. He turned his gaze back to the water, still smiling. You should ask the lake. It knows everything. What did you think of Lake Havoc? Comment on Spotify, and let's talk about it. A huge thank you to Kelley York for submitting this terrific story. Be sure to follow her on Instagram and Threads at Kelley Writes. That's Kelley, spelled out Kelley, and on her website, where you can find more of her work, kelley-york.com. And of course, be sure to follow Midnight Horror Stories wherever you stream pods. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'm Will, and thanks for listening to Midnight Horror Stories. See you next episode.